Okay, so we're starting the recording. Welcome to the Mitten Synod Gathering information meeting. We're going to look at a couple things here real quick and talk about what is going to be happening in New Orleans this year. I wanted to show a resource first. If you go on YouTube to the ELCA website, if you go to their playlists option and you scroll all the way down, there's an ELCA Youth Gathering playlist. In there are some phenomenal promotional videos that I'm not going to play for you tonight. They're like a minute and a half long for each of them. They're fantastic. There's one about a general hype video for the gathering. Great video, catchy, fun music, awesome awards. There's a deep dive into the themes if you want to figure out a little bit more what's going on there. There's information also on Table and Mila, which we're going to talk about here as we get going through things. I just wanted to show you where these videos are. Also, if you go further down, if you have a congregation that's never been to the gathering before, you can come further down here and see some previous gathering events. So there's some different day recaps from different days at the gathering back in 2018. There's mass gatherings, so the evening worships are on here, so you can see if someone's never been to the gathering, you can get on here and say, oh, this is what it looks like a little bit, which can be a helpful resource for those who have never been to a gathering before. So one of the many resources I hope to share with you all tonight as we get rolling. So just be aware of that. And like I said, if you have any questions, just holler. We'll pause what we're doing and try to address it. So we've said some introductions. We're getting ready for the ELCA Youth Gathering in New Orleans in 2024. There's actually 4 events happening at the same time connected to the gathering. So what they like to call the main event is the ELCA Youth Gathering, which would be the 16th through the 20th. And then there's Mile and the Table, which are 2 pre-events. And they happen a couple days before the gathering starts. And the young adult gathering is happening at the same time as the ELCA gathering. More about that in a second. So again, we can watch a hype video, but you can watch it on your own. It's a whole minute, 20 seconds. It's fantastic. The goals of the gathering are really important. And in my opinion, as the ELCA, I think one of the best things we do on a big level is the ELCA Youth Gathering, where we gather together and are able to give every person who attends an idea of what it means to be church on a large scale. Oftentimes, when we think of what church means, we think it's my congregation that I go to on Sunday and I worship with, and sometimes we do a service project or we go help somebody out in the neighborhood. And we think that is what it means to be church. But the ELCA is actually an amazing global entity. And at the youth gathering, we'll be worshiping with 20,000+ people in a stadium. And there's something amazing about understanding that you are part of something this big and getting connected to things so large. So it's a phenomenal, amazing event. I got plugged into it years ago and I can't stop going. I'm just excited about it. So there's a lot of goals for the youth gathering, affirming and challenging the faith of the young people, experiencing new perspectives, coming together from all across the country and the world. People from all around the world will come to this event. It's phenomenal. Vocation training, bonding, and learning more about our partners. A lot of that happens. So this year's theme is created to be, and contemplating how God has created each and every one of us to be something unique. The main theme verse is from Psalm 139, verse 14, which says, let me get my screen out of the way here. I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works that I know very well. And we're going to be focusing on how God has made us. The daily themes are going to involve being brave, being created to be brave, creating to be authentic, created to be free, created to be disruptive, created to be disciples. And so for the 5 days of the gathering, each day is going to have a separate theme that's going to be dug into in devotional materials, in main stage worship, in events happening all across the city for us to think about how God is pouring into our lives and creating us to be different things in different ways. That's a bit about the theme. Again, there's a YouTube video. You can go dig into it way deeper. It's 6 minutes and really well done. It goes pretty deep into this stuff. The 2 pre-events that are before the gathering are amazing, and I really want to highlight them because I think they're really under-engaged and absolutely amazing. They happen July 13th through 16th. So 3 days before the gathering, these 2 events happen in the city in separate locations than the main gathering will happen, then the main event will happen, but they're phenomenal. The first of which is Mila, Multicultural Youth Leadership Event, which is run by our good friend here that we see on the screen. And it's pretty amazing. It is an event specifically designed for people of color and people for whom English is not their natural first language. It's phenomenal and amazing. The speakers, the worship, the affirmation that comes to those young people, It is phenomenal, and it's free for the first, I do believe, 1,000 participants this year. So if you have people of color or people for whom English is not their native language in your congregations or around your congregations, please tell them about this event. It's phenomenal and amazing. Everyone I've talked to who has gone to it has said it is amazingly life-changing, more life-changing than the gathering main event itself. It's powerful. It's
There's
amazing.
vehicles out there.
What was that, Kathy?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted.
That's okay. That's okay. But again, if you can get to people in Mila, I think it's phenomenal. I'd love to be able to gather a group of people from all across the synod to go to Mila with a leader or two to help them walk them through this experience. It's fantastic and amazing. The second pre-event is something called the Table, which is designed for people with disabilities of any kind, be it physical, cognitive, emotional, all of those ways. And it's a phenomenal event that, again, reaches out the open arms to say, you are part of our church. There is a place for you here. We want to let you know that you have a place here. I know at least the first 200 registrations for Table are free, that are completely covered. And they might have actually bumped that number up higher. And one of the cool things about Table is if you register for Table, you don't have to go to the main event, because there are some people for whom Table is perfect, but being in a crowd of 20,000 people is not a good environment for them. And the gathering committee understands that, and we want to make sure that everyone is able to engage and be connected as best as they can. And we don't want to set people off because we just don't understand that. So Table, again, amazing experience. Usually for every participant at Table, they try to have their caregiver kind of walk along beside them. And I've heard from some caregivers that this event has been life-changing for them. So again, if you have people in and around your congregations for whom this could be a thing, please, 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 please let them know about it. Here in Grand Rapids, there's an organization that does like a youth group for young adults, kind of high school age kids that have cognitive disabilities. I'm reaching out to them and saying, this event is awesome. It's specifically tailor-made for your population. Is it something you think you might want to plug into? Could just be a really, really good thing. And then the other thing that's happening at the same time as the gathering is we all know what happened 3 years ago when the world shut down and we all had a terrible mental crisis. And when that gathering was postponed and then canceled, the synod representatives all got together with the leadership staff at a retreat, and we talked about what did we experience, what did we feel, and to a person, all of the synod representatives said, it's a shame that there's a generation for whom they've never been able to go to the gathering. This year's juniors and seniors didn't have an opportunity to go to a gathering because there just wasn't one for them. And so this is where this young adult gathering was birthed. This is an event for those 18 to 35. They're invited to come be a part of the gathering. It's going to be like a concurrent event. So it's going to happen at the same time. These groups are not going to be doing the same thing as the high schoolers, but they're going to be broken into cohorts by their age. So if there's a whole bunch of people 18 to 20, they're going to be together. There's a whole bunch of 35-year-olds, they're going to be together, and they're going to be invited to walk through the event as a group. We're all going to worship together at mass gatherings, but this is something to let your young adults know about. If they're interested in this thing, they've never experienced this thing, they want to go back to this thing, this young adult gathering has been specifically designed for them. And so it's being birthed, it's becoming new as we speak, but I'm very excited about what it might mean. I have some young people in my congregation who are going to be college kids next year, and we've talked about this, and they're pretty excited about the possibility of getting to experience this thing they've heard about, wanted to go to, but never got a chance to go to. So that's what's going on with the young adult gathering. I'm excited for the option there. Gets us to the question, who can attend the gathering? And so the gathering is designed for youth who will be in 8th grade next year. So if next school year, your child is in 8th grade, and after that school year, they will be going into 9th grade, they're invited to the gathering. And if your child will be in 12th grade or have just graduated that summer, is usually a little bit of leeway for those graduates, they're invited to the gathering. Does that make sense? If there's a fuzzy issue, we can talk to them, and most likely the answer is going to be we're going to find a way to get them going because it's that.
So, Dan, just to clarify then, another way of wording it is they would need to be entering the 9th grade in fall of 24.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, entering 9th grade in fall of 24 would be the best way to think about it. So those rising 9th graders in that year will be allowed. When you think of adult leaders, so the adults who are companions for the young people going to the gathering, They ask us for them to be 21 years or older. So that's just a liability responsibility thing.
10th grade next year.
Good on that one? Sweet. So the gathering programming is generally centered around 5 themes. There's Synod Day, which is the day all of us geographically get together. Talk about that in a second. There's Accompaniment Day, which used to be known as our Service Learning Day, where we go and we serve in the community. We do something, have an amazing experience, and then reflect on it and engage in it. Pretty awesome. Interactive learning, this is one of the coolest things out there. There will be a convention center where nearly every ministry that the ELCA is connected to has an area for an interactive experience. And young people will be, and their adults will be able to come to that experience and experience it and then go try something else. So one that my group experienced when we were down in Houston is we came to an area that was talking about refugee services. And they said, okay, your group gets to sit in this room, this circle for 30 seconds. And after those 30 seconds, you all have to get up, grab everything you can, and go to this other room. And we went to another room and someone talked to us in a loud voice in a language we did not understand to try to help us understand what does it mean to be a refugee, to be forced out of your home, to be forced in a place where you don't speak a language, to try to carry resources with you. Our young people had a phenomenal experience there. When I was in Houston for that gathering, there was a wheelchair obstacle course we got to do. So there was a course set up where you were invited to sit in a wheelchair and try to get through this course, go through the sand and around the rocks and up a ramp and in a door and get to a bathroom and get yourself onto the stool. It was difficult and hard to raise awareness of what is going on. There's a convention center filled with this kind of stuff. And every day you rotate through these different themes. So your congregation will have a day in the Interactive Learning Center where you get to go experience as much as you can. Awesome and amazing. Mass gathering is where we get together every night in the Silverdome and we have amazing speakers and amazing worship and worship with 20,000 plus people every day. It's phenomenal and amazing. And then community life are things that happen outside of mass gathering in hotels and in the streets where we gather together and just have a grand old time. These are ways where we try to help our young people experience God in a variety of ways. And so they look a little different. This year's Synod Day looks a lot different. In cycles past, we would gather together in a hotel and we would have worship and a big synod experience. This cycle, they've changed it. We're gonna have a worship for about an hour, hour and a half-ish block, and that's gonna be at either like 10 or 2 on a day in a specific location. And then we're all gonna be sent out into the city to experience New Orleans. And you're gonna be able to sign up for those experiences when you register, if that makes sense. And some of the experiences have no cost, some of them have a little cost, some have a little more cost, based on the things you're going to be able to do in the city. So that gets us into the next question of when do you register? Here's the all-important registration slide. My suggestion is register as soon as you can in this priority registration window. It opens in September, it goes till November, you get the lowest price, you also get your choice of preferences for your accompaniment day. And you also get a choice for hotel location. So look at this, you can add people as you go on, you gotta get deposits in, we've all done that, that's all on their web pages. The priority section, it'll give you hotel location, accompaniment theme, and hotel prices. You can try to lock in your preferences as soon as you can if you register early. That make sense? And if you're going to the ELCA Youth Ministry Extravaganza, which is a big training that happens every year for a lot of youth ministers in ELCA, your hotels that you're assigned to will be given to you before the extravaganza. So I always tell people, if you're going to do an extravaganza, do it the year of a gathering because it's always in the same city. And then you can get a chance to walk around the facilities and say, what's the convention center look like? What's the stadium look like? What's our hotel going to be? Where's all that go? I'll jump ahead here. We're going to be in New Orleans and all of the hotels are in walking distance to the convention center. So this is the convention center down here. The Silverdome is up here. These are all the hotels that are reserved. I think I counted 38 of them last time I looked at them. They're all in walking distance to where we want to be. So that's going to be pretty exciting that we don't have to be hopping on buses. For those of you who were with us when we were down in Houston, there was a lot of long bus rides every day. You'd wake up and hop on a bus and drive and get to the convention center and do all the things and get on the bus and drive back to the hotel. So that happens. And oh, good, I didn't hang there. So that's what's going on with housing and registration. There's a new option out there as well called gLearn. In years past, there's been a gathering manual book that comes out. You can order it from Old Lutheran and dig into it and check it out. That book has been replaced by a website called gLearn. If you go there, there's simple, easy courses to walk through. They'll show you a video, talk to you about what's going on, and help you understand everything going on with the gathering. So it's a great resource to plug into. You can do it on a mobile device, on a computer. I've done a lot of the trainings and they were very simple and very informative. Does that make sense so far? And then some contact stuff. Here's some contact info for me. If you ever need to get a hold of me, you can send an email to mittensynodgathering2024@gmail.com. Yeah, go ahead.
So for the gLearn, is it going to be more like specific about the topics and things we're going to be discussing there?
The gLearn is going to be everything. So it's going to talk about how do you organize your trip? How do you organize your group? How do you think about packing? What are the different days going to be like? I know they're working on an app that we're going to be asked to engage with. That's going to have topics and locations and things to plug into. So some of the community life stuff will pop up in the app and say, hey, there's a street dance happening over here, or these musicians are performing on this corner near you. Things like that, they're going to try to put in the app. The gLearn is going to be a lot of like the resource. What do we try to understand as we move towards the gathering? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So how will that be? How is that going to be different than like the extravaganza, or except for the extravaganza, you're going to actually be there and walk around and see it?
Yeah, you'll be there, walk around, and see it. So in years past, there's been like a big book that says, you know, if you need information about fundraisers, here's what to do. If you need to make a spreadsheet to try to figure out costs for the trip, here's a way to do it. All of that is now on this web portal, so you don't have to download a book or buy a book or print off a book. You can just hop into this web portal and say, I want to learn more about how do I organize my team, or I want to learn more about the theme. I want to learn a little bit more about New Orleans. All of that is going to be a variety of gLearn courses. I would pull mine up, but my computer's a little slow and I don't want it to hang on me. So really easy website to work through though, but good questions, Pam.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. On the housing thing, if I bump back up here, they're thinking right now as we start to think about budgeting for the cost of the trip, think about roughly $175 a night per person per room. Depending on how many people you want to cram into a room, that can happen. And so if you combine that with your registration cost, you can start getting an idea of what your ticket cost might be. Also, we got to figure out transportation. We'll talk about that in a couple seconds. And then food costs. Know that food costs are not included in part of registration. So breakfast, lunch, dinners, those are things you have to pick up on your own. A hack I learned from some friends of mine is Amazon will deliver groceries to your hotel room. So if you think ahead and make a big shopping list of like granola bars and stuff and send it to Amazon and send it to the hotel, it will be there waiting for you at the hotel when you get connected.
Dan, I just want to make sure I didn't hear wrong.
Yeah.
But you're saying 175 a night. So that's 3 people at 175 in a room?
Let's see. They are saying average 175 plus tax.
Or is that
per-
175 by 3?
I'm gonna guess it's by 3.
That's what I thought. I think it is. I think it's 175 for the room and you can fit 3 people in it.
I was hoping that was the case.
Yeah, I know. When he said that too, I was like, wait a second, that's a
Nice.
really nice room.
Okay, thank you.
But I wondered, like, how come they only put 3 in a room? I wonder. Are they not allowed to share?
They probably have a pull-out couch or something.
Yeah.
Oh, they don't share like okay.
Yeah, and that's a good question to be how you want to organize your rooms. Do you put 2 in a room? Do you put 4 in a room? Do you put 3 in a room and make someone sleep on the floor? Do you bring some inflatables? There's lots of ways to do it, but to try to think about how does that work out. I will double check with the team to make sure that that's total, that's not per night, because I know hotel costs get to be expensive. They just do.
Well, and I know different congregations have different policies as to who can share a bed with whom and that kind of stuff. So it's going to be average.
Yep. So let me stop my presentation here and we can just ask and see what other questions people might have. So what are thoughts, ideas, questions people have as we think about getting ourselves ready for this crazy, amazing event?
So Dan, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, Tim. You fixed it.
I was interested in the switch over to accompaniment from service learning. I know there were a lot of logistical, when you're trying to get 20,000 kids serving, there's always going to be some challenges. And so I'm wondering what the different, like, what's the shift? Tell me more about accompaniment.
I haven't heard a whole ton about the shift. From what I think it'll be more along the lines of working alongside a pre-existing organization than
Okay.
going and doing a project. So when I was in Houston, we went and like threw mulch down the middle of a road on trees, which was something they needed us to do. It was good, it was fun, but we really didn't work with anybody. So I think it's going to be a little more partnering with locals and saying, what is God already doing here that we can come along beside and
Right.
learn from the people doing this.
I think
Yeah.
I know at the one I didn't go to, I heard about how hot it was, but they worked on like some old plantation houses and they were fixing them up and they had to like paint and then they had to go and like weed. And I guess it was really, really hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with that many people, there's going to be 100 different service organizations, 100 different experiences. Not everybody's going to be organized the same way, and some are farther from the city. So I'm actually liking the idea that they're going to maybe focus on relationships a little bit, if that's what that means.
And I also like that, you're going to be able to try to specify a little bit of what your accompaniment you want to do at the registration process. So that's going to be helping out a little bit too, to kind of help you figure out what are we going to be signing ourselves up for. I saw Amanda had a hand up.
Yeah, at Extravaganza this past year, I believe when they talked about this portion, they mentioned that they're kind of expanding the realm, that it'll be, some people won't do service projects. Some people might just go to a nonprofit and learn about a ministry, or they said advocacy work. I'm not sure what that all could include, but I think it could be a lot of stuff besides service.
Yeah, so it's getting broadened, and I think it could open some good ways. Other thoughts and questions people have?
I don't want to dominate. I have one other.
No, go right
just
ahead.
Thinking about our experience in Houston, and part of it is I didn't know our kids that well. I didn't really know where they were coming from. I had just come, it's less than a year after I came. But they had some strong reactions to the speakers, and I was trying to figure out how to, I don't know, when we're going to get a sense of who's going to speak, and just the ability to pre-brief and debrief, which there wasn't a lot of information ahead of time as to, who's going to talk, some like outline of what they're going to say, and how can you talk with your kids about, about this.
Just a burp there, sorry. But yeah, that's been a reflection that came up from a lot of the Synod representatives as well, to say, can we get a little more information about what's going to be shared with, so we can prep our kids if we need to. The speaker list is usually public. I forget when, but a few months, if not 5-6 months before it, you can start trying to look people up. And YouTube is great for that, which is nice.
Yeah.
But that's not something everyone has time for. So I know that's something the leadership team has heard, and I will reiterate it back to them to say, can we do a little bit of that? Because it's important to help our kids process all this stuff. And they're long days with tons of information, and they're going to be a little overwhelmed probably. And so to try to say, what are the things we need to touch on, and what's really striking you as a person from today that we need to start working on processing? I think it's an important thing.
Yeah. Well, and don't get me wrong, they were top notch, and I would, I was fully excited about everything that happened, but I just would have wanted to know how it was going to hit with our kids.
Yep. No, and I'm sure they're going to have a lot of hard-hitting speakers again this year and digging into a lot of different issues. So that I'm excited about. They haven't started releasing those. They're still gathering a lot of those people right now as we speak. Other thoughts, questions people had out there before I throw a couple other things out?
I had a question about, this is kind of hard for me compared to you all because I'm in Southeast Michigan, but just transportation. That's not something I've really had to navigate before on my own. Detroit is way different than New Orleans. So have there been any thoughts or suggestions or pros and cons on bus versus getting a central bus, I don't know, out of Lansing or flying or what have you heard, Dan?
Yeah, so I've been bouncing my brain off that one a lot. So one thing I'm glad to do is if people are interested in buses, I'm glad to try to yoke people together in areas. So Southeast is a much smaller landmass than Northwest. But to say if we got, 4 or 5 churches up in the Traverse City area and a couple by Muskegon and a couple by, Big Rapids or wherever, can we find a centralized location to say we're gonna have a bus leave from here? I'm glad to help organize that. I know my congregation is going to fly because that's a really long drive. On transportation, my suggestion is actually arrive the day before the event begins. So if the event begins on the 16th, try to arrive on the 15th because you might be slowed down, you might have travel issues. And last time when we were in Houston, this is legit what happened to a group that took a bus down. Their bus rolled into the hotel. The hotel was not ready for them. The rooms were not ready. They had to unload the bus because the event starts right after noon. So they had to unload the bus into a conference room, put everybody back on the bus and drive to the starting of the event. And then after a full afternoon and evening of event, come back to the hotel, get their stuff out of the conference room, try to get their rooms ready and go to sleep to get ready for the event the next day. That's hard. That's really, really hard on young people, on old people, on all of us. So my recommendation, what I've done for years, is I try to get down the day before. The hotel blocks are open on both ends. So you can add an extra day on either side if you want to. I really, really want to encourage people to think about get there the day before. You can get settled into your rooms. You can have a nice dinner. You can get a good night's sleep. And then you can wake up, have a good breakfast in the morning, get your day bag packed, and head off into the event. Yes, it adds an extra night of hotel stay, but it really, really reduces the wear and tear on your group and can help you have a better experience. And so that's what we're planning on doing. And my recommendation is if there's groups that want to bus, try to bus down the day before. So that if, the ride takes a long time and the bus breaks down halfway and you have an hour layover and something's got to get fixed, you're not late to the event. That's my recommendation. I'm not saying you can't arrive that day. I'm just saying that's what I suggest. And for transportation stuff, I've worked with a bunch of coach companies over the years for different kinds of things. I'm really glad to help organize groups together to say we can fill a bus with churches from this area. And so let's charter a bus and get it to pick people up in this area, identify a leader in that area who can say, I'll be the point person for the bus. They can sign the contract and make it happen. I've worked with lots of congregations over my years doing youth ministry and as a pastor, where we got together and said, well, we have 3 small churches who want to go do this big thing. How do we go do it together? And so one thing I highly recommend for the gathering is if, your congregation maybe has 2 kids that want to go to the gathering and the congregation down the street has 3 and another congregation has 4, you can actually do the event together as a big group. When you register, you can put different congregational IDs in under one registration. So then like 3 churches can go as one group to the gathering. And that can cut down on the costs for adults that have to go and rooms that need to be rented. And it can make it easier for everyone to have a better experience. When I was going to seminary, I did something like this with 3 churches from different denominations where I was working as a youth director. And that partnership still exists today, that those churches are still yoked together to think about how can we do our youth trips big together. And we just found an easy way using fractions to share costs. And so I'm all about how can I help congregations get partnered with each other to make it make sense for you to go as a group. Be that geographically or across states, or if you got like one kid who desperately wants to go from your congregation, but no one else from your church, I really want to help you find a congregation near you, and if not near you, then another congregation that they can go to this event with, because I think it's that powerful and amazing. And so one of my desires is to start identifying leaders all across the synod to say, in this Muskegon area, how do we want to get together? Down by Kalamazoo, over by Lansing, what can that work out? Chicago, New Orleans, yeah, Amtrak's another good opportunity. If you want to ride the train, it's going to take longer, but that's okay, right? So there's lots of ways to get down there. Does that make sense, or am I rambling too much?
Did I see something about a discount for flying or no?
That hasn't been found yet. If you get a big group, you might be able to find some kind of discount. You can probably beg, borrow, and steal miles from people to make things happen. Amanda was going to chime in. What do you got for us, Amanda?
When I went to this workshop at Extravaganza a few months ago, they said, if you are planning to travel with someone, keep in mind your hotel situation, because you might want to then choose a hotel in the same location, like French Quarter or whatever. And also, like, there's also 3 choices of like low, mid, or high price. Also choose the same thing for that, in hopes that maybe you can be in the same hotel together, but if not, at least close to each other.
Yep. So if you're traveling with separate congregations that are registered individually, you can put your preferences in to say, these are the areas we want to be in, try to get them all together so you land in the same place. If there's multiple congregations traveling as one registration, which you can actually do. So if there's, 3 churches in Saginaw, they all get together and say, we want to go as one organization. You can register as one church, put all your congregational IDs in the registration, and then you're going to be in the same hotel block in the same places. That makes sense? Okay. So again, there's lots of ways to do it. And I've gotten creative over the years and found the ins and the outs of all the systems. And I just want to help you all get your young people to the gathering as much as we can. That's my deepest goal, because it's that good of an event. Other thoughts, questions, worries, concerns?
Sorry,
Amanda.
another question, or a question this time. Do you know, like, what are the benefits of using the hotel room block versus me getting a hotel on my own so that I know free breakfast is going to be offered or something?
My guess is, looking at the map they gave us of hotels, which I can pop back up here for a second. So my guess is, looking at this hotel room block, there's probably not many other hotels in that area that are not going to be booked for this event. So my guess is, if you're going to try to get a room outside of the gathering block, it's going to be hard to get them within walking distance. So that could be difficult.
I'm not really worried about that. I don't, because hotels usually don't. So I work with hotels for a living. They usually don't like give you all the rooms in the whole hotel. They usually still save some for the public to buy. But I was just wondering, like, do we know what like the hotel life is going to be like this year? Like, is there going to be a house band? Like, are there big perks to staying in one of these hotels?
I think that's a good question that I will ask them, and they'll get back to me, because I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a great question.
I have a family that wants to go, like grandparents and another and a parent, and I went as a parent. So and I just wondered, is there any restrictions, or is there any kind of, do I sign them up as part of the gathering?
There is a volunteer portal they can sign up for. If you go on the gathering webpage, there's a volunteer portal they can put in there. I do believe the applications are still open. So that's
Okay.
one option. There's no limit to the number of adults you can bring for a group.
Okay.
You just have to bring them and pay for them and find housing for them.
Okay.
So that goes. In the congregation I'm in, I kind of have to beat the adults away with a stick to make sure we don't have more adults than kids going on this trip.
Right.
Like, I don't need a 1-to-1 ratio. I don't need that, because some of them experienced it and they know how amazing it is. And like I said before, I
Oh,
think
it
it's
is.
the best thing we do as church. I really think it is. It's just an amazing event. So there's no limit on what you need. Generally, the guideline is you need to at least have an adult of a gender for the people you're bringing along, is what they ask for. But I don't think they have a set in stone ratio. Like some organizations, it's 5-to-1, some it's 6-to-1, some it's 8-to-1. That I don't believe is set in stone with the gathering. Other thoughts? So a couple requests from me to you is if you're in a geographical area and say, I would love to help try to figure out some transportation, or if there are like kids at a small church that want to come on a trip, if that's you, I know there's some of you out there, let me know, because as we start hearing from congregations, I want to be able to direct people in their local areas, because Northwest Lower Michigan is a giant landmass. And so, I mean, I'm glad to have people come with my group, but we're in Grand Rapids. And so if there's a group in Midland, it makes more sense for them to go with a different group. Does that make sense? So if you're interested in that, let me know. That'd be great. On our Synod Day for worship, we have a worship time set up. I'm going to try to put together a worship team from the Synod. If you want to help out with that, please let me know. I don't play any instruments well. I just don't. So I was going to call Tim anyway, so I'll just put that down now. And then there's another resource that I worked on last gathering cycle that I want to invite you all to think about. As we try to get people excited about these events and these trips, I find that stories are the most important way to do it and the best way to do it. To say, I went and I experienced this and this was part of my life. You can't argue with the story. Someone just tells you a story, you got to take it at face value. And so I made a YouTube channel for the Minneapolis Synod where I just invited folks to say, give me a minute, 30 seconds to a minute of what's your gathering story. So when you went to the gathering, what did you experience? How did it connect with you? If you email them to me or share them with me, I'll put them up on YouTube as a resource for the whole Synod and the whole country to say, if you want to go hear what someone experienced at the gathering, this is what they did. Right now, I got one from Pastor Jake in Kalamazoo. I got one from me, and I got one from Bishop Satterley to say these are just stories of people's experience with the gathering. And if it's a young person, an old person, anybody, because I think as we share the stories, particularly our young people can say, oh, that resonates with me and makes me excited to try to go to this event. Again, it's a big event. It's an exciting event. It's really, really fun. And we're going to get it going there. A couple things in the chat. As congregations start registering, I will get knowing who gets registered, and I'm glad to share that information with anybody. Reach out to your local churches as well. Talk to your conference deans, talk to your pastors. Open communication is good communication. Yep, send a letter to churches and conferences. So yeah, I think all of that is good. And my deepest desire, like I said earlier, is to just help every congregation find a way to get as many kids to go to this event as possible, whatever that looks like. If that means partnering, if that means, going on your own, if it means getting together, if it means gathering with 8 other churches to fill a bus, I just want to help facilitate whatever that looks like. And I know we're in a big, diverse synod, and I love that about our synod, and just want to say, how can we be of service to make sure that as many people can that are going there. Thanks, Pam. We'll see you later. Any other thoughts, worries, questions, concerns about gathering? Go ahead, Amanda.
Do you know, last I heard, if we have young adults who register, they will not be in our hotel rooms with us. They will stay in a different hotel. Is that the case, or did that change?
That's currently the case. So what I've heard about the young adult gathering is that when they register, they need to register not connected to your congregation. So when they register, they need to do a separate registration because that'll tease them out. And then they're going to take the different age groups and put them in hotels together. So like all the 18 to 21-year-olds or whatever, they're going to put in one hotel with each other. And then all like the 20 to 25-year-olds, that kind of same thing. And they're going to try to make like age-based cohort groups and encourage those groups to then experience the gathering together. So all the 18 to 21-year-olds, if there's 50 of them, to help them be like one big group to go experience the gathering as if they were a congregational unit. Does that make sense?
That does. And that's also helpful to hear, because at Extravaganza, they said, well, they can still come with you to mass gathering, but maybe they wouldn't want to if they're going to get to be in a group together with some others.
Yeah, the piece I heard at a synod, at the synod representative, synod champion thing, I got too many acronyms in my brain, is they said that they're going to keep them together and they're going to go to mass gathering as a group. So that it's kind of, the way I envision it in my brain is it's taking a church that's separated all over the nation and just happened to come together for this event. So all of a certain age group, they're going to put together as a group is the way I see it working in my brain. And they're going to do service learning or interactive accompaniment. They're going to do Synod Day with a group. They're going to do interactive kind of as a group and travel around that way and experience it with each other, which I think will be good. They can travel with you. They've said that, which makes a whole lot of sense. So if you're traveling by bus or by plane or by train or by, I don't know, bike, they can come with you because that makes transportation easier, but then they'll head to the wherever they're staying separate and then get reconnected to travel back. Again, it's something new, so we don't know everything yet, but I'm super excited it's there because it's filling a need for those who missed.
Pastor Dan, with the youth group, or the young adult group, are you going to be privy to people from the same area that might be going in that group? Because I can see where there might be a lot less of those numbers, but if we have some that are also in the same area that they could maybe meet up, know each other a little bit ahead of time, is that something that you'll know that information about?
I don't know yet, but I can ask.
Okay.
And then they'll tell me, and hopefully they'll tell me soon. But
Yeah.
hopefully it would be geographically bound, but I think a lot of it's going to depend on registration numbers.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. So lots of good things. I'm excited. If you have logistic questions, let me know. I love planning all that stuff out. I got the crazy weird 12 to 18 month planning brain. Amanda's husband, CJ, knows this. I bug him all the time. He's like, we haven't had that conversation yet. Stop it, Dan. So it's okay. I want to help you however I can and be of assistance as we think about how we do this together. I'm very excited for our young people to go and experience this amazing event and very excited to get as many people as we can there. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording because that's always annoying.